Well, we've seen how quick and easy it is to create a pivot table. What we now need to look at are some of the formatting options that we can play with. So if we take the Sales Inc. 2013 data, we're going to quickly create a pivot table. So insert pivot table. New worksheet as always. OK. We're going to put the total price into the hash values and the month into the rows. And this gives us a summary of the total sales per month, so broken down per month. Now, if we want to format the number that is appearing, you could, in theory, highlight these cells and just go back to the home ribbon and format them, as we've done there. However, if you format the cells that the data is in, if the pivot table refreshes and rebuilds and finds itself with more or less rows, the formatting will not apply to any new rows that are added. So the safest way to format is to actually format here in the pivot table itself, in the instructions over here, where it says sum of total value. If we tell the sum of total value how to display, then it will be displayed like that wherever we move the pivot table to, or whether the pivot table builds more or less rows as it's refreshed. So we click on the little arrow and come up to Value Field Settings. Whilst we're in here, we can change what it says at the top of the column. See how it says sum of total price? Well, we could change that and put sales dollar. To change the number formatting, we choose the number format box here. And that takes us to the Format Cells dialog box, but we're now doing the control through the pivot table rather than formatting the actual cells. And I'd quite like a counting style. OK, brings me back to the Value Field Settings dialog box. And then OK takes me back to the pivot table. And you can see the column heading has changed and the formatting of the cells has changed. That's the value section, little arrow, value field settings. Now in the same area, we can actually change the function. We know that it defaults to sum because we have a numeric value, but we can change it to count, average. So you could have the average sales value per month rather than the total. The max, the min, so the highest or the lowest. Product, so the multiplication. And then we have standard deviation and variation. So let's go for average to see what that gives us. OK. And we have the average of the total price. Again, you might want to change the column heading. I'm going to call that average dollar. So we can change the function that gets carried out and change the formatting of the cells, all controlled through the little pop-up and then value field settings. There's nothing to stop you using the same field more than once. So if I wanted to put in the total value again, so the total price here into the value section, see how it defaults to sum. I now have two columns, average and sum. However, the sum one does not know that it needs to be formatted as accountancy and doesn't know that its title needs changing as well to total dollar. And the fact that I can add two columns doesn't stop me from adding three. So that again goes into the value section. It's assumed sum, but I'm going to change that to min and change its heading to min dollar. And we might as well have the whole family. So again, we add the same field again, change from sum to max and change its heading to max dollar. And there I've got four columns, all calculating different formula values. Now within the list here, you can move them around. So I could take total and drag that up so it's the first one, and then average and then min and then max. That's four different functions being carried out on the same field in the values section of your pivot table. And we simply have one field in the row section, which is the month name, and it's grouped them by the 12 months of the year.